Before we get started with the review, I would just like to say I got my very first patron on Patreon the other day. Jackson, thank you so much. I'm super appreciative. I realized that I have the Patreon link in the description, but I never really plug it, so this is a plug for my Patreon, I guess. Alright, yo, listen, check it. I cannot appreciate you guys enough for watching the videos, sharing them, liking them, subscribing to the channel. I mean, in the last 28 days, I've gotten almost 600 subscribers. You guys are insane for doing that. I mean, I could not be more appreciative. However, if you feel like you would want to support the channel a little more, if you would actually like to give a donation, know that the Patreon link is in the description, and know that I am super thankful for what you guys have been doing for the channel. And if you don't feel like giving a donation, that's totally fine. You can help support the channel by giving the video a like, subscribing if you have not, and sharing the video with someone that you think might also enjoy it. That's the Patreon plug. I'm gonna not do that every video. It feels kind of weird, but I just figured I should let you guys know. It's in the description if you guys feel like supporting the channel by giving a small financial donation. I'd appreciate it. This has been a couple of weeks in the works, honestly, and the reason why, well, I'm going to explain why as I review it, but we're going to be talking about Drogas Wave by Lupe Fiasco today. I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me if it seems like I'm thinking too much before I say anything. I don't really have anything written down, just because I didn't really want this review to feel like it was rehearsed. I just wanted it to feel genuine, and I just wanted to like actually have almost a conversation with you guys about this album, because this album is such a conversation starter, honestly. So once the review's over, if you want to, let's debate in the comment section. Let's talk about in the comment section what you guys think the album's about and all of that, because that's what I really feel like this album was kind of for. But Drogas Wave, man, what an album. So I went around and I watched a couple of other reviews about this album, mainly Sean C's review. It's a great review, it's on his channel, definitely go check it out if you haven't already. And he basically said that he could sum up more or less what this album was about in one word: freedom. And I could see, you know, how he got that, especially with the way that he explained himself in his review. But with this project, I mean, I really wish, honestly, that I could just review it and sum it up in one word the way that he did, because it would make my job easier. But me personally, I can't bring myself to just confine this project to one word. You know, even though freedom is a very major topic of what the album is about, to me this album is about slavery, mental and physical, ancient and modern. It's about freedom, it's about empowerment, it's about decency, it's about love, it's about equality, so much more. Honestly, there's just so many takes that you could have on this album. And so that's why I feel like using one word just wouldn't really be enough. This project is so special, and I'm going to talk about it conceptually first and then musically. In this project, Lupe Fiasco talks about slavery a lot, right? And the story that he's telling is of a couple of slaves who were being brought to the West Indies. There was a typhoon and these slaves were thrown off the ship because that was the way that they did things. There was a typhoon, you needed to lose weight on the ship, they threw overboard all the unnecessary cargo, and slaves were included in that unnecessary cargo. They were viewed as property. These slaves that were thrown into the ocean, they didn't die, they turned into long chains. They became part of the sea, and they decided to either, some of them went back to Africa, and some of them stayed as part of the ocean, seeking to sink and destroy other slave trade ships to liberate other slaves. I can draw a connection from long chains to Lupe Fiasco because he is trying to, with this project, free our minds and liberate our minds from the slavery that exists today. Especially with one of the first tracks, Manila, he talks about our enslavement to physical things, to material things, to big brands, to clothes, to electronics, to physical material things, to money. Addiction and obsession with money and with having things. In this track, he plays the role of long chains, trying to liberate us from that, trying to open our eyes so that we could see the things that we are attached to a point to where we're enslaved to them. You know, the internet, our cell phones, our TV screens, designer clothes, designer everything. And I think it's an interesting take, and that is the modern slavery portion of it. But in the, of course, ancient slavery, or I don't know, the older slavery that he's talking about in this, is the use of Manila, which were little horseshoe-shaped metal trinkets made out of copper, bronze, gold, silver, and they were traded to slave traders in return for actual slaves. So like, they were trading human lives for little metal trinkets, basically. And so he's teaching us a little bit of history. I learned a lot, so much about history with this project that I just either didn't learn in school or learned and hadn't remembered. So it's really cool the way that he incorporates almost a history lesson along with trying to open up your eyes to show you that you're enslaved. So he correlates himself to long chains. He correlates the older slavery to the modern slavery, and their actual slavery to our mental slavery to these material things. And this is a theme throughout the project. He does this a lot of times, trying to open up our eyes to our mental slavery, allowing ourselves to be enslaved to our financial status, to our labels, to our material things like that, to our finances. It's a huge theme throughout the album. He also talks a little bit about drug addiction and our physical and mental slavery to drugs and how we are so obsessed and addicted to these things that are literally killing us. So that's how the project to me is about mental and physical slavery in the older sense and in the newer sense, is because throughout the entire album, the whole project can be seen as a metaphor for an actual history lesson that also correlates to modern times, that also correlates to Lupe Fiasco playing the role of Long Chains, trying to free other people. This project is about decency and kindness and giving back in the sense that we have the tracks Alan Forever and Janila Forever. And in both of these songs, the child who, in this narrative, almost died, wakes up, goes on to become successful, and eventually gets into a profession that allows them to save another child that is in the same situation that they were in as a kid, and they ended up saving themselves. That's basically the gist of what these projects say. But the way that I see this is, he is talking about, well, actually that correlates to a track called Kingdom, where he basically names tons of cities that are predominantly black cities, inner cities. He talks about them as though they were kingdoms. Port-au-Prince is a kingdom, Kingston is a kingdom, New Orleans is a kingdom, and at one point in that track he says, does the king make the kingdom or does the kingdom make the king? And that correlates to Janila Forever and Alan Forever, and I'll show you how. When he says, does the king make the kingdom or does the kingdom make the king, he is talking to the black youth in those cities, and he is challenging them to not allow the environment that they grew up in to shape who they become. You know what I mean? To not get lost in that lifestyle, in the streets, and to find a way to influence your surroundings, the king to shape the kingdom, instead of letting the kingdom make the king. By doing so, you'll be able to break free from the slavery that you were in that kingdom, expected to, live a street life and to die young, to not make it past 25. He is empowering and challenging black youth to shape their environments instead of being molded by their environments and becoming another victim of their situation. And that correlates to Janila Forever and Alan Forever, because Janila and Alan could be seen as people who almost died in a certain situation, correlates to the kings in their cities, but they grew up and they overcame that situation. They did not die, they made it past 25, they became successful in a field. And when they became successful, instead of leaving that situation that almost killed them and never returning, Alan becomes a lifeguard and goes right back to the beach where he almost died. And Janila becomes a doctor and goes right back to the inner city hospitals where she almost died. And in doing so, they're able to save and help other children who were in the same situation as them, and in doing so save themselves. So that is the kings and the queens actively shaping the kingdoms that they grew up in, overcoming everything, being successful, and instead of just leaving it all behind for other people to grow up and to stay in that same situation and struggle, they come back, and by serving other people in their communities, they save themselves. It's a really powerful message, and what I get from that, and it's something that I also struggle with because I see it a lot going on around me. You know, I see a lot of people who are older who struggled like crazy coming up, right? But they've made it to a place where they're successful, and their mentality is, if I made it, you can do it too. Instead of their mentality being, since I made it, I'm not going to let you struggle in the same way that I did. I'm going to make it easier for you so that you can come and be where I am and make it easier for other people and pay it forward, you know? So it's like, I had to struggle to get here, you do it too. Instead of, I had to struggle to get here, so now you don't have to, because I'm going to help you. That's the mentality that I have. I see a lot of people around me with not the same mentality. They're all like every man for themselves. And what Lupe is trying to convey with these tracks is, when you have that mentality, you lose your soul. You become a slave to your success, to chasing after your finances. You become greedy, you don't help other people, and in doing so, you lose yourself. Whereas when you give up your selfishness, when you don't chase the huge financial gain, when you make that sacrifice in order to help other people, to save other people, you save yourself, you find your fulfillment. And he's empowering you to make it out of the situation that you're in, go back and help other people so that they don't have to do exactly what you did to make it. So in that sense, I say that the album is also about kindness, decency, love, compassion, and empowerment. Empowering people to be better and help other people be better. I think that the most powerful point in this project for me is on Wave Files, which by the way to me is my favorite track off the project. Nature itself is apologizing to the slaves on the ships for unwillingly partaking in enslaving them. The slaves look into the ocean and they say, how could you do this? How could you carry us so far away from home? And Poseidon looks back at them, who is the god of the ocean, looks back at them and apologizes and says, the ocean is salty because of you guys' tears. Jump ship, come be a part of us, we'll free you, you can help us destroy other ships. And then they say, trees, how could you do this? Forest, how could you do this to us? Your wood made these ships that we're on. And the forest itself apologizes. The wood turns itself into a matchstick and says, burn the rest of us down because we would rather die than participate in this. You know? They challenge the stars and say, stars, how could you do this? You guide these people to lead us far from home. And the stars say, you know what? We're sorry. But now that you guys are, you know, passed away, you guys can join us up here spiritually, and you can be a part of us, and you can be, you know, stars yourselves. And to me, the reason that that's so powerful is you can see that man, when he partook in the slave trade, he enslaved not only the men and women, but nature itself to perform these atrocious acts. I'm the type of person that likes to see nature as a living, breathing thing. You know, I like to see and think of the earth as though it were alive. Trees, the nature, the flowers, the birds, the bees, all that. You can call me a hippie if you like to. Seeing something enslaved against its will, you know, this picture that Lupe Fiasco paints of nature not wanting to participate and having to because men, you know, forced it to, and apologizing to these slaves is just such a powerful moment of these two, the people in nature that were enslaved, talking to each other and debating and becoming one, really, because all the nature is all inviting the slaves to jump ship and to become one with nature, to try and destroy other slave ships and free other people. And I think that's just such a powerful moment. The beat to that track is perfect for the storytelling that Lupe Fiasco, you know, does in that track. I think that that's probably the most powerful moment in this project for me, is just that dynamic of the slaves talking to nature and nature responding and apologizing and just being so remorseful. It's beautifully painted, really, with his words. You know, that's something that Lupe Fiasco conceptually also did really well. His storytelling was absolutely tremendous on this project. And lyrically, conceptually, I have no complaints with this project at all. I do think that it might have been a little long. There were a couple of tracks that I would have removed, but conceptually, I think that this project is incredible. Definitely one of the best told stories on a project that I've ever heard. The entire project is just a narrative. It's just an entire really big story, you know what I mean? That's what I think the project was about, but now we're going to talk about it musically, production-wise. I think that this album, the production is absolutely beautifully arranged. You know, every single track feels like the production is perfectly crafted for the story and the narrative that Lupe Fiasco was telling on that track. It feels like all the beats were made intentionally. You know, they were made with a purpose. They weren't just made and then like, hey, I've got this really cool beat, you want to rap on it? It feels like they were made to convey a mood, every single one of them. So I think that that aspect of the production and the music in this album was tremendous. That slave ship interlude with the violin is just, it's so raw and emotional and powerful. It's so harsh, you know, at some points. The violin just sounds so harsh. But that's also purposeful. It's about a slave ship. Things were hard, you know, it was harsh. It was not fun. So it really gets this emotion, this like overwhelming sense of just futility, you know, just nothing is in your control when you listen to this violin playing for 3 minutes. You just feel like you're not in control of anything and you just feel so helpless, which is the point. It's supposed to make you feel like you're on a slave ship, but it just pulls this raw emotion out of you and it's really powerful. Production wise, this album does not do tremendously for me in the way of replayability. In the vast majority of these tracks, the beats are not the main focus. The lyrics are. And that is completely fine. It's completely fine. Like I said, conceptually, lyric-wise, this project is phenomenal. But the fact that the beats are not the main focus means that the replayability does go down a lot for me, because I'm way more of a casual music listener. Very rarely do I have time to sit down and experience an album. Do you understand? So it's one of the reasons why I will listen to Take Care more than I will listen to Good Kid, Mad City, is because, and this is just the way I consume music. This does not have to apply to you at all. I'm just giving my opinion, my review. When I listen to Good Kid, Mad City, I want to listen to it as a whole. I don't want to have to skip tracks. I don't want to have to pause it. When I sit down and say, I'm going to listen to Good Kid, Mad City, I sit down with the full intention of sitting back, letting the entire thing play out, and listening to the story that Kendrick Lamar is telling me. Whereas Take Care, I could just put it on, skip tracks. I don't have to listen to it all as a whole. I could just, you know, play one-off songs from the track, because even though the lyrics on Take Care are kind of a focus, the production is really what does it for me. You know, it's the mood that the whole project sets. It's the vibe that I just want to experience for a couple minutes and then play the next song. To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, and Drogas Wave are albums that you have to experience. I'm not going to play one-off songs from Drogas Wave. There are no songs that I feel like were made to be hits on Drogas Wave. This project was made to be listened to in its entirety and experienced as a whole, which will diminish the replay value for me just because I really don't have time to listen to a 20... how many tracks? 22, 23 tracks? I don't really have time to sit down to listen to a 23 track album and experience it as a whole every day. That's not to say that the beats are bad at all. Like I said, I think the beats were perfectly crafted to fit the mood and the tone for every single track. I just mean to say that when I listen to this, I'm not listening to this for beats. I'm listening to this to listen to the story and pick apart the story that Lupe Fiasco is telling. And so if I'm listening to this, I'm looking for lyrics. I'm looking for the story. The beats are second to what he's saying. If I listen to Amigos' project, I don't care what they're saying. They could mumble the entire track. I just want the slaps. I just want the beat and the bass to knock. That's it. This is not the case. You understand? So I think that every single sound that is used in a beat has a purpose. I did not hear any sound in any of these beats that I did not like or understand the purpose of in any of these tracks. They're just not the focus. The focus is the lyrics, is the concept, the awakening of the person listening, the liberation of the slaves listening to this project. And that's really it. I mean, this album, if you have not heard it, set aside an hour and 40 minutes. This album's a movie, basically. Set aside an hour and 40 minutes, pull up Genius so you don't miss any of the words that he's saying, put in your headphones and just experience it, because you should. You absolutely should. I am not surprised that it is in a lot of you guys' album of the year contention. I want to thank you all for watching the video. Follow me on all my social media. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments. Let me know if you guys disagree with anything I said, if you agree with something I said, you want to add on to it. All of that in the comments. You can also DM me, like I said, follow me on my social media. I'll answer to as many of you as I can. Thank you again, Jackson, for becoming a patron. If you guys want to become patrons on my Patreon and support the channel financially a little bit, links in the description. I would super appreciate it. Thank you all so much for subscribing like maniacs the last couple days. Yesterday I had 1,460 subscribers and now I've got over 1,600. Almost 1,700 I believe. Thank you all so much for subscribing, for supporting the channel. My name is Doug, you guys the viewers. I'll be back very soon. Thank you all so much for watching. Peace.
Cutting haters up, feel like Kobe Bryant. Ring on every finger, feel like Kobe Bryant. I'll be selling out arenas, feel like Kobe Bryant. All-time great, I feel like Kobe Bryant. Listen up, everybody hearing us. People that were hating pretty soon, they gonna be feeling us. No one said it's easy going